A building can start warning you long before it collapses. The problem is that most people don't recognize the warnings. A crack appears on a wall. A door suddenly refuses to close. The floor feels uneven. Columns develop cracks. Water starts entering places where it never used to. And sometimes, people simply paint over the problem and continue living inside the building. But what if that small crack is not just a cosmetic defect? What if it is telling you that something inside the structure is changing? In this video, we're going to look at some of the most important warning signs that can indicate structural distress, and what you should do when you notice them. Remain stable. But when something begins to fail, whether because of poor construction, excessive loading, foundation movement, water damage, corrosion, poor maintenance, or other problems, the building may begin to show visible signs of distress. The key is knowing which signs deserve attention. But here's something important. Not every crack means a building is about to collapse. Some cracks can be superficial. For example, plaster and paint can crack because of shrinkage, temperature changes, or minor movement. The concern increases when cracks are significant, persistent, rapidly growing, or associated with movement or deformation of structural elements. Pay particular attention to cracks that appear in columns, beams, structural walls, or around major openings. Diagonal cracks around doors and windows can also deserve investigation, especially when they continue to grow. And if you have a crack that was previously small but keeps becoming wider or longer, don't simply paint over it. Monitor the crack and have the building assessed by a qualified structural engineer or other appropriately qualified professional. Because the most important question isn't simply, is there a crack? The better question is, why is the crack there, and is it getting worse? Warning sign number 2, cracks in columns and beams. Now let's talk about something more serious. Cracks in structural members. Columns and beams are not ordinary walls. They are part of the building's load-resisting system. If you notice significant cracking, spalling concrete, exposed reinforcement, or unusual deformation in a column or beam, it should not be treated as a simple painting or plastering problem. One particularly concerning condition is when concrete begins breaking away and reinforcement becomes visible. Once reinforcing steel is exposed to moisture and oxygen, corrosion can begin. At the same time as cracks or floor movement appear, it could indicate that part of the building has moved. This movement could be related to foundation settlement, structural deformation, or other changes. Never automatically assume that every sticking door is a structural problem. However, don't ignore it when it occurs alongside other warning signs. Instead, investigate the possible root cause. The most dangerous mistake: ignoring the warning signs. A building doesn't necessarily collapse because of one dramatic event. Structural deterioration can develop gradually. A small problem becomes a larger problem. A larger problem creates additional stress. More damage develops, and eventually, the structure may reach a condition where it can no longer safely carry the loads acting on it. That's why early detection matters. Don't wait for a building to look obviously dangerous before taking structural problems seriously. So, what should you do? If you notice these warning signs? First, don't panic. Second, don't assume that every crack means collapse. Third, don't attempt major structural repairs yourself. Document what you are seeing. Take photographs. Record when the problem first appeared. Monitor whether the cracks are widening, lengthening, or whether the movement is increasing. Qualified building professional. In summary, buildings don't always collapse without warning. They can show signs of distress such as cracks, foundation movement, water damage, exposed reinforcement, uneven floors, misaligned doors, structural deformation, and unusual sounds. These signs do not automatically mean that collapse is imminent, but they can indicate that something needs proper investigation. And the earlier a structural problem is identified, the more options there may be for repair, strengthening, or preventing further deterioration. So the next time you see a serious crack in a building, don't simply ask, "Can I cover it with paint?" Ask, "What caused it?" Because sometimes, the building is telling you that something is wrong. And ignoring the warning doesn't make the problem disappear. Have you ever noticed any of these warning signs in a building? Tell us what you observed in the comments. Like and share this video with someone who owns, manages, or lives in a building. A few seconds of awareness could help someone recognize a problem before it becomes much more serious. Follow and subscribe to Wiko's Insights for more practical engineering, construction, and safety insights.